Heroes Reborn Episode 8, June 13th, Part 2. I really love this episode. I think this is probably my favorite one out of the series so far. And I really like June 13th, Part 1. I thought that was pretty cool. We got the reveal of how Claire technically died. We got the reveal that she died in childbirth, but this was the episode that gave us our official reason. We got, a lot of other cool things. Just the fact that Hero and Noah went back in time was just cool to begin with, and we got to see what was really happening on that day. And then this is when everything just gets all screwed up. It's technically the same timeline, because when I was watching it, when they first did it, when Noah met Tommy, and he was still Nathan, and he was like, I've been training for this, and my dad trained me in this and that. I was like, okay, so they've technically changed the timeline, but for the better. And I was like, so there's the original, technically the first 6 or 7 episodes kind of don't count. There's some things that still counted in there, the stuff with Katana Girl is all the same. But there are certain things that I thought they were changing, but I ended up being wrong by the end. Because ultimately, no matter, despite all the stuff that happened, Tommy still ended up becoming Tommy. He went from Nathan to losing his memory. He was turned into Tommy. And it was him and his mother, and that's pretty much it. So that's how the episode ended. But in between that, there's just Noah ran into Noah. Noah shot Erica in the leg, so that changed things. That was really the only change that we saw, and it was kind of a messed up change. I was like, that kind of sucks. I can't think of the guy's name naturally because I suck with names, but I thought it was gonna be simple. I thought it was gonna be okay, so he helped her, and then she was like, all right, you can see your sister. I thought for sure that what was gonna happen was gonna be that he basically saved her, and she wasn't gonna be completely corrupted and evil, and somehow she would be taken away from him again, and maybe that's what. That's how that was going to play out. And then instead it turns out that because he was able to see his sister and he found her, I guess he kind of felt indebted, or maybe Erica kind of twisted things around and, was like, hey, this is happening. We need these Evos. And he's like, well, if that's what it takes. And granted, he couldn't exactly time travel himself and, stop a, summit from being destroyed. So I feel like that just has to be how it played out. She convinced him, hey, we need these Evos to... Well, it's not even to save the world. She may have lied to him and said to save the world. And, of course, she just wants to kill the kids off so that they can't save it. Or, I guess, just send them into the future instead of stopping it to begin with. But it was kind of crazy seeing that ending. And he's like, you went through time and stuff and, everything worked out. And then he calls her and I'm like, that sucks. Everything that happened, we get basically the comedic relief of the whole series. He becomes one of the bad guys working for Erica, and I don't know what to expect. It would suck if he died twice, and then it's he died as the good guy by his own sister, and then he has to get killed by Noah because he's technically now one of the bad guys. That would suck for his character. I'd be that's kind of devastating. Just knowing, even in 2 timelines, he ends up dying. No matter what, whether he's the good guy or the bad guy. And I guess as the bad guy, it's different. It's not as sad, but combine that with the fact that he died in the first timeline as well. It's that kind of sucks for his character. And he might know that. Noah would probably tell him after that scene where he realizes, he's actually a bad guy now. He'll probably tell him everything that happened in the alternate timeline and stuff. But it was a great episode. I love getting the reveal that the reason Claire died is because Tommy actually took her ability to heal, and he actually takes Hero's power, and it's very different. It's kind of it's almost like Siler's power, except it's permanent, without him having to kill everyone. Obviously, he's a little baby at first. So it's kind of like Siler's ability where, he takes people's powers, and it's permanent because Siler, until the 4th season, which was the end, until that point, he was killing everyone, so it was basically they lost their power for good. And that's kind of how Tommy's power is. He'll take your ability, and then you're done for. It is gone for good. You lost yours, he has it. And it's the much harsher version of Siler and, God, I can't even remember the main character's name. I know Nathan was the brother, or Peter was the main character. So it's like a harsher version of Siler and Peter's powers, where it's like he takes the powers and that's it. Like you don't have them at all anymore. They don't come back when he takes another power. None of that. It's like he takes a power, and then if he takes another power, you lost your power forever and you're just human. And that kind of sucked. And that's that's how we end up having Hero trapped back in time, and that's how we find out that Tommy actually doesn't have just teleportation powers. His powers are actually Hero's powers. He has full on time manipulation abilities, and maybe he never knew that in the current timeline, and his mother hid that from him, and is like, we'll just tell him he can only teleport people. That way he won't even try to jump through time, because that would screw a lot of stuff up. So that I loved. I was like, holy crap, he took Hero's power, which I forgot was part teleportation, because once you go time travel, it's like, oh yeah, he can teleport too. It's not that big of a deal anymore. And all I think of is like he can stop time and travel through time, and I'm like, oh yeah, he can flat out teleport as well. I forgot that that was actually a part of his abilities. So it was really cool to see that happen, and we get like the older version of Hero, because Noah's like, okay, well, Hero never came back, and then he kind of, they worked through it, like, that's why Claire died, because the baby took her power, must have taken Hero's power, so we have to find him now. And I thought that was awesome. It was like Hero grew up in the past, and he ends up becoming Tommy's father, and all this other stuff, and it was just really sweet. I thought that was actually kind of awesome. I liked the way that they did it. Um, just everything they did for part two, I thought was really sweet. We even got to see a really crazy tie-in with the whole El Vengador thing, where they show his backstory when he gets like a medal for saving all these people, and we find out that he actually used to be in a relationship with an evil, who turned out to be the woman protecting Melinda, and I thought that was kind of cool. I was hoping that because they showed her that would change as well, where somehow she was able to live, but I don't think that ends up happening, unfortunately, because it was like, oh, now they gave her, like some form of backstory. It's technically tied to El Vengador, but it's still both of them, and it's their backstories, and I was like, man, that kind of makes me care more, because we really had nothing for her character. It was like she's just the woman protecting Melinda, and that's pretty much it. You knew she was with her for a long time. I assumed, I think like a lot of people, that it was since she was a little kid, but it had only been for a year. But it was like, man, that kind of makes me care now about this character that, really had no information. She was just there protecting Melinda, and then she was shot and killed. So maybe that possibly changed. I would love for that to happen now, because it's like, well, now it matters, and I'd love to see her somehow, get into the El Vengador storyline again, and then they end up back together, or she helps him with whatever's happening with him now, which I hope we get back to, since we're going to the present. Whatever happened with his stupid idea to just drink whatever was in that vial that knocked him out. So hopefully something else changed and she survived, but I don't think that that was really the case, unfortunately. But I like what they did with this episode. It was really, the last one was cool, but this one was really awesome. It gave a full explanation. It gave a complete answer to how Claire died, because it was like a cardiac arrest. I like, that was something I mentioned. Like, I don't think going into cardiac arrest is gonna do jack to block that little piece in the back of her head. So it gave an answer to that, where Tommy actually takes people's powers, and I guess that just means he never really encountered people, or I guess that just means he has control over his ability to not sap other people's powers anymore. So he doesn't, and he just sticks with his time manipulation, which is arguably the best power to have outside of being able to take a bunch of other people's powers. So yeah, it was just a really nice, fun episode. It had some pretty good action scenes in it, even though we technically could get an answer in the next episode. I am hoping that the older version of Hero didn't die, which I guess is just Hero now, because since he was trapped in the game, this is the version of Hero that there is, because he went back in time, and that's pretty much it. So I'm hoping that he didn't die in that battle, and we do get to see him. I guess if he's able to find Tommy and his wife, then he'll be able to run into Noah and be like, hey, mostly for us, it'll be like, hey, I actually survived that fight, which I would love to see. I hope he did, because Hero, he's one of the favorites, so hopefully he survives and he still shows up, in another episode or something. But I'm really looking forward to this next one. We have Noah going for Tommy. He's gonna tell him everything. Which in the preview he was like, "What's complicated? Hiro Nakamura is my father, and I'm supposed to save the world." So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if the guy with the suitcase full of pennies gave him his memories back. I have no idea. I was wondering if he could do that because taking his memory and then giving it back to him was like, well, can he actually do that? Like, obviously he can take people's memories for a certain amount of time or, whatever. Because he took years off of Tommy's life. He took like 15 years off. And that's the most we've seen. For everyone else, it was like, oh, forget these last couple of hours or something. So he can take a bunch of time, which I didn't, know until this episode. I didn't even really think about it. So he took all those years off. He took over a decade of time. So I'm wondering if he can just be like, here's a penny back, like any random penny maybe, or it has to be the exact one. I have no idea. But, boom, he just hands him a penny and he gets all his memories back. That would be pretty cool. Because I think it was kind of interesting. The past version of Tommy was so prepared, and I kind of like that version of Tommy. Like, we had the regular timeline where Tommy, even after the memory wipe, when he went to Paris and all that stuff with Emily, he realized, like, I can do this. I want to be, a hero to people. I can make this happen. I can try to save the world. So I like that version of him. And he was even more prepared when when Noah went to see him in the past. So hopefully he's like that, because I was like, that's pretty cool. He's, like, ready to fight, and he's ready to get into the action. And he met his sister and stuff. They were, separated. But, he sees her and stuff, which I guess he'll get that whole shock all over again since he lost his memory. But I'm really looking forward to this next episode. We're almost finished. With this being episode 8, we only have 13 left. So, I don't know. Like, things are going to have to be happening real quick. But I really love this one. I thought this was a nice, fun episode. Probably the best two that have been in the series so far. Like, I've loved other episodes, but this is probably, like, the one. And we also got to see Luke and his wife do their first kill when they killed the guy who actually can, like, freeze stuff. And, he goes to thank Luke, and the look he had on his face when his wife was stabbing that guy, and she's, like, it was just straight blood all down her arm, and she's like, I'm totally fine. His face was just like, what the hell is happening? He was in, like, complete shock and terror, and I was like, and that was, that was the moment. And it was, from that very moment, it was insanely clear the divide that they were going to be going on. Even if he didn't end up, developing his abilities, that would have happened no matter what. Like, I don't know what that confrontation is going to be. We still have to wait and see what happens when they, of course, come across each other again in the present. And he's, with Melinda, and they're trying to, actually save the world. But that was a crazy scene. He was just like, holy crap, losing his mind. And she's just like, I'm totally fine. I thought she was honestly just gonna smile at him. Like, it never fully happened. She was just breathing, and it was like, it wasn't exactly a smile, but it was, I guess, like, the slightest little smirk, it seemed. And I'm like, I feel like she's just gonna look right at him and just completely smile and be, like, content. But she never really looked away from the body. Like, that would have been, like, the ultimate if she just looked at him and just, like, smiled or something. But she was constantly just looking at the body and breathing hard, and he was just looking up in terror like a deer in the headlights, because that was crazy. But I liked that scene as well. It was just nuts to watch that first kill really take place between the two of them. No shock that it was her. It actually would have been pretty interesting if he was the one that did the first kill, and she, like, if she had hugged him or something after he killed the guy, and if he, like, did it by accident or something, or even if it wasn't, because after the guy like, pushed her off, that's when he got into the fight, and he almost got killed because the guy was, like, freezing his neck, which I believe he let go even before she jumped on him. So he was still trying to get out of there because he didn't want to hurt anybody. But it would have been interesting if Luke was the one that actually did the first kill, and then his wife kind of comforted him, but she was, like, totally happy about it or something. That would have been really interesting, but still really crazy and fun to watch. With sort of the normal expectations where she was the one that did the first kill. So, definitely great episode, some surprising stuff. Mostly the El Vengador thing was the most surprising thing. Actually, seeing that take place was pretty interesting, and it seemed like it came out of nowhere. Like, whoa, I didn't, because they had nothing to do with him in the last episode. So it's just like, whoa, I didn't expect to get a flashback for him and what he was doing in the past. So that certainly surprised me. But I love the episode. Can't wait to see what they do with them going back to the present. They're like, the stuff with Luke, the El Vengador stuff, and even Erica's daughter is a fairly important timeline, or current, present day storyline that I'm certainly interested in. I don't know what they're really gonna do with that, because all she could really say is like, "Mom, I'm pregnant, and my baby's probably gonna be evil, and that would affect Erica mentally." But either way, I'm looking forward to it. I obviously really enjoyed this episode. Of course, I want to know what you guys thought, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and combining part 1 and part 2 together. I want to know what your favorite moment was out of this whole little time travel adventure that we had, because there were a lot of cool moments. We had Hero when he was doing like the butterfly thing. That's like one of my favorite scenes, and it was so simple. It was nothing. But we got Hero. We got classic characters from the show. We got Matt was in this episode. We had Angela in both of them. We had Mohinder in the last one, who unfortunately is like officially dead. Like that kind of sucked. That because he had like the thing on him. Although, yeah, I guess he'd be dead because his powers were dampened by the darkness. So that did kind of suck. Cause like, man, technically he did die from that. So we did technically lose Mohinder. But there were a lot of cool moments. It was nice to see the older characters, just the time travel stuff in general. Seeing, kind of seeing. I think my favorite thing overall is probably seeing the fact that this was always the timeline that it was meant to be, and that's just one of the many possibilities whenever you do time travel. So everything they did, where it was like Noah, the only thing Noah really did change was the stuff with Erica being shot in the leg and changing what happened with his buddy. So other than that, it was kind of cool seeing like that's what was meant to happen, and it was sort of like just the timeline loop where Hero was meant to be captured young and then go back in time and lose his powers and grow up and actually raise Tommy as Nathan, of course. And it was like, that's how it was all meant to be, aside from, what happened with Erica. But I loved it. Like I said, I want to know, your favorite parts and just what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know. And thanks for watching.